Is the Modi government trying to have more control over how judges are appointed in India? Yes, if you go by some of the recent comments made by Union Law Minister Kiren Rijiju. He's called the present Collegium system alien to the Indian Constitution. He's hit out at judges for being more preoccupied with deciding appointments rather than dispensing justice. He's also called for government representatives to the Collegium. But it's not just the Law Minister who's taken several swipes at the judiciary. Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar and Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla have accused the Supreme Court of not respecting the powers of the legislature. So why does the Modi government want to change the way judges are appointed? And how has the judiciary responded? Let me explain. Law Minister Kiren Rijiju has made it very clear that he is not happy with the Collegium system of appointment of judges. So what is the Collegium? Under the present system, judges appoint judges. And yes, it's not a perfect system at all. The Supreme Court Collegium is made up of the Chief Justice of India and the 4 senior-most judges of the Supreme Court. They collectively take decisions on appointments and transfer of judges to the Supreme Court and the various high courts. There's also a High Court Collegium, which consists of the Chief Justice and the 2 senior-most judges of that court. But the High Court Collegium can only send in recommendations to the Supreme Court Collegium, which then takes a final call. Now, the Collegium system isn't found anywhere in the Constitution. It came about through 3 Supreme Court judgments. And this is where the problem lies. Because for over 40 years, judges to the Supreme Court and to the various high courts were appointed by the President, that is, on the advice of the Union government, and in consultation with the CJI and other judges. But all this changed in the 1990s, when the Supreme Court created the Collegium system. Since then, the government has had a limited role. It can raise objections on appointments and transfers, but the Collegium still has the final say. But the government's limited role in the judges' selection is just one part of their problem. There are other criticisms too, and these have been voiced by many others, including by those in the judiciary. So what are they? 1. Lacks transparency. The biggest criticism against the Collegium is that the system is opaque. No one outside the Collegium knows how decisions are made. There are no records of the meeting. The entire selection process is shrouded in secrecy. This secrecy was in turn encouraging lobbying within the system. This is point number 2. Justice Ruma Paul, a former Supreme Court judge, had in 2011 said that consensus within the Collegium is sometimes reached through lobbying and through trade-offs. She said the selection of judges was operating on a you scratch my back, I scratch yours type of system. She said this was resulting in dubious appointments. 3. Lacks diversity. Many have pointed out that the Collegium system is essentially an old boys club. The judges are largely men belonging to the upper caste communities. This lack of diversity and representation when it comes to gender, caste and community has in turn reflected in the selection of judges. But those in favor of the Collegium say that the present system prevents political interference in the appointment of judges and helps maintain the independence of the judiciary. Now, the Modi government did try to replace the Collegium system with the National Judicial Appointments Commission in 2014. The NJAC bill was passed in Parliament, removing the Collegium system. The NJAC was to be made up of the CJI, 2 senior-most judges of the Supreme Court, the Union Law Minister and 2 eminent persons from civil society. But the NJAC never came to be because the Supreme Court struck it down in 2015, calling it unconstitutional. The Law Minister's recent comments against the Collegium system has raised questions on whether the Modi government is trying to take back control of judicial appointments. Although Kiren Rijiju did tell Parliament that the government has no plans to reintroduce the NJAC bill at present, he did write to CJI Chandrachud on including government representatives in the Collegium. So how has the judiciary responded to the government's complaints against the Collegium system? Unsurprisingly, the comments haven't gone down well with the Supreme Court, which said the government is free to bring in a law to replace the Collegium system, but this too may be put to the constitutional test. And while Parliament does have the right to enact a law, the power to scrutinize it lies with the top court. The strongest indication that the Supreme Court has refused to back down from the fight with the Union government is when the Collegium reiterated the names of 5 advocates as High Court judges, names that the government had objected to. In an unprecedented move, the Collegium went public with the Union government's objections to the appointments of 3 advocates to various high courts: Saurabh Kirpal, Somashekar Sundaresan, and John Satyan. Take for instance the case of Saurabh Kirpal, an openly gay lawyer whose name has been recommended for elevation as Delhi High Court judge. The Law Ministry had raised objections to Kirpal's sexuality and his passionate advocacy for LGBTQI rights. But the Supreme Court Collegium stood by its decision to recommend his name, pointing out that every individual has the right to maintain their own dignity and individuality based on sexual orientation. Commending Kirpal for being open about his sexual orientation, the Collegium said that his appointment will add value to the bench and provide inclusion and diversity. It also rejected the intelligence report by the Research and Analysis Wing, which was apprehensive over Kirpal's partner being a Swiss national. But the Collegium said that this would have no bearing on national security. In the case of the 2 other advocates, Somashekar Sundaresan and John Satyan, the government had objected to their appointments, saying that they had posted or shared posts on social media that were critical towards the Modi government. But the Supreme Court Collegium did back the 2 advocates, saying that all citizens have the right to free speech. By going into detail on the reasons for reiterating its recommendations, the Collegium not only managed to counter the primary criticism against it, that it was secretive and opaque, but it also exposed just how hollow the Union government's objections to the judges' appointments were. So while the judiciary may have won this round, its battle with the Union government is far from over. Before I go, I just want to quickly remind you that if you value the journalism that we've been doing here at the News Minute, do support us by becoming a member. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as always, if you like this video, hit the like button and share this video with your friends.